Bel Joso Cheese is a family-owned and operated company specializing in artisan Italian cheese making. Using only natural ingredients and fresh, local Wisconsin milk, master cheesemakers handcraft a full line of exceptional cheeses, guided by a commitment to quality and a respect for tradition. Ask your distributor about Bel Joso's award-winning fresh mozzarella, burrata, ricotta, mascarpone, American grana, and Parmesan. At Bel Joso, every cheese is a specialty.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Extra Serving, a Nation's Restaurant News podcast. I am your host, Holly Petre. This week, we're going to be talking with Bret Thorn, our senior food and beverage editor, about the latest food trends at chains and independents. Throughout the week on First Bite, Bret has told us about some of the latest trends, including the swicy combination and the rise in sauces. We'll get into some other trends with Bret on today's episode. Next, we're going to be talking about how celebrities, and now influencers, are changing the landscape of restaurant marketing. While it's far from new, it seems like the industry has been hitting the gas on partnerships with the influencer economy, has become more accessible for smaller brands, meaning that they don't need these big celebrity names anymore. Finally, we're going to be talking about music and restaurants. Applebee's campaign with Walker Hayes in 2021 was a success. And now it seems like Red Lobster is trying to emulate the success for much less money. Is this low-hanging fruit for the struggling brand? And is it culturally relevant? This week's guest is Chris Eckfeld, the Director of Supply Chain for District Taco. And now it's time to introduce my co-hosts.
I'm Sam Oches, Editor-in-Chief of Nation's Restaurant News.
And I'm Senior Food and Beverage Editor Bret Thorn.
Previously introduced Bret Thorn.
Hi again, everybody who didn't hear 1 minute ago.
You get a shout out in the intro, Bret. It's all about you today.
I feel good.
Should I go? Should I leave?
You're
I'll
welcome.
go eat an early lunch.
It's always nice to have you, Sam.
Oh, thanks.
Bret's like, stay, Sam, and I'm like, bye.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
I enjoyed the 3 days without you.
Yeah, I'm going to see my way out.
Where you've been?
I would love to. Thanks, Holly. I just got back from Restaurant Leadership Conference, which was earlier this week out in Phoenix. And so probably many of you listening were there as well. It was a phenomenal event. As I mentioned from the stage, we have not previously been there because we were on the outside looking in. Now we are one big happy family, and that this is under the Informa umbrella RLC. So had the privilege to go and moderate a couple sessions, see a bunch of great, interesting people and great, interesting sessions, and have a lot of good food. So I need to really up my exercise in the next couple of weeks because I'm feeling really low to the ground, even more so than normal. But yeah, Restaurant Leadership Conference, great time. Looking forward to going back next year.
Well, and do you want to tell our audience why you're anticipating so much more food and drinks over the next few weeks, including some things in Atlanta and some things in Chicago?
Oh, I was going to say, I don't know, because I particularly like food and drinks. Yes, I am eager to do that. Thank you, Holly, for the tee up. On May 6th, we are hosting our Atlanta Create Roadshow. We hosted in Atlanta last July, had a phenomenal turnout, a great time. So we're back in Atlanta this May 6th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Cheeto and Padres in Buckhead. So if you're in Atlanta listening to this, please join us. It's a totally free event. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't remember how to find the invitation, so Holly's going to put it in the show notes. But if you go to nrn.com, you'll probably see it. And if you're one of our subscribers, you've probably gotten an email. Search for it in your junk box if you haven't gotten it. But yes, May 6th, 6 o'clock, Cheeto and Padres in Buckhead. It is a networking opportunity and an educational opportunity. We will be revealing more details about the education piece of that in the next week or two. But in the meantime, register for free if at the very least you just want to come meet a bunch of interesting restaurant operators. Then, of course, in May is the National Restaurant Association show in Chicago. I believe the dates on that are May 17th to 21st. I'm getting that right. Perhaps 18th to 21st. I don't need to introduce the show to you. You guys all know all about it, but a very important event that's happening at the restaurant show that happens every year that we host is Menu Masters. That's the Saturday night, May 18th And we are hosting in a new location this year. That's very exciting. That will be at Morgan Manufacturing, which is located in Fulton Market District in Chicago. Very exciting neighborhood, very cool venue. And particularly if you're a chef, this is the event for you. We'll have over 500 restaurant executives. Many of them are corporate chefs or some sort of culinary field. And we have an award celebration, an after party. It's a blast. And we will be recognizing our Menu Masters Award winners. And the final thing I'll throw out, the final plug, is that if you want to learn more about our Menu Masters Award winners, which have already been announced, go to YouTube. Go check out the Menu Masters collaboration series that we've produced up on YouTube. Menu Masters is its own YouTube page, so search for Menu Masters on YouTube. You will find some cool videos. Bret is on some of them. I am not, long story, because you will find out how these winners put together the menu for the evening at Menu Masters. So very cool opportunity to be a part of that program, and we'll all be there at Menu Masters, and we'll get to see all of you. So good times had by all.
Yeah, and I'd like to rope Bret into this because, Bret, you are integral in this process and helping pick the winners. So if you can kind of tell us about the winners this year and how you guys picked them.
Well, I mean, we always pick them by looking at applications and seeing if any of those catch our eye. But often it's just looking at what we've seen introduced over the past year and evaluating them. And you know, some of them are really obvious, like McDonald's redid its burgers. That's a really big deal. And so we gave them an award for Best Menu Revamp. For Best Limited Time Offer, Kava did, now I don't remember whether it was limited time offer or Best New Item, but we gave them to Kava and Tender Greens. Kava did a new bowl with like spicy falafel. That's a really engaging and fun dish. And Tender Greens introduced the Longevity Bowl, which is based sort of on the Blue Zone diet. And that was our healthful innovation. That's what it was. Tender Greens got healthful innovation. Fogo de Chang got an award for adding pork belly to their menu. And for Best LTO, we gave an award to Del Taco because they did birria ramen, which was fun. In our new category of digital innovation, we were giving an award to Sam the cooking guy, Zion. I recorded a podcast with him. It's going to be available somewhere if it's not already. Our innovator is Chef Meherwan Irani of Chai Pani, based in Asheville, North Carolina, also with locations in Georgia. And I just did a podcast with him. It'll be going up, and I'm going to do one with the great Nancy Silverton of Matza, founder of La Brea Bakery, and many other things. She's being inducted into our Menu Masters Hall of Fame, and she's going to be at the party serving food. So go there to the party. I mean, you got to be a qualified restaurant operator to get in. So, register.
Can't just be a Joe Schmo off the street.
This is an exclusive party. With
you will get bounced.
Cool people out.
Well, first of all, my big takeaway from that is I've tried saying Fogo de Chao the way that you say it, and I've gotten heckled on this podcast, Bret. So hearing you say it makes me feel better.
Fogo de Chao is how I'm told it's pronounced in Portuguese.
Yes, that was pronounced from the stage at RLC, so can confirm.
Yes, I did that, and you and Leon both heckled me.
Well, it's easy to do.
All right, so, continuing on our food segment, I guess, we will talk about some food trends with you, Bret. So, that birria ramen from Del Taco is interesting because last year was a big birria year. That was kind of the food of the year. And this year we're seeing a lot of this swicy trend, which I know you hate that name. It's sweet and spicy, which we shall call it sweet and spicy on this podcast to honor you. And we also talked about the sauce innovation, we'll call it. How sauces have kind of been building up in QSRs for a while. Now they're becoming more global, more flavorful. So what are some of your takeaways from the industry right now in terms of food trends?
I forgot. We discussed this in First Bite yesterday. Was it yesterday? The swicy trend. I'll go ahead and say swicy. It's okay. Church's Texas Chicken also has come out with their first signature hot sauce. So that's a new one. But there are a lot of sweet and spicy sauces. And as we've discussed, that's sauce innovation is something that you can do behind the scenes, and you have manufacturers produce it for you, and then it is operationally really straightforward. It's a easy way, relatively easy way, to bring new menu items and dynamic flavors in a way that don't require more than one new SKU in all likelihood and no new equipment. So that's awesome. There's also been, I think the flavor this summer is going to be the creamsicle. It's orange and dairy, which is popping up a lot of different places. Also, Dave & Buster's just redid their menu. And one item that struck my eye was a side dish of string beans with chili crisp, which is, chili crisp is mainstream now. If Dave & Buster's has it on their menu, that's about as.
Are you allowed to say it though?
Well, that's a good point, Sam, because David Chang was suing some mom and pop producers of chili crisp, saying, "No, that's my word," and it didn't go over that well. And I believe he's back down from that. And I don't think David Chang's going to sue me, but if he does, I'll just refer him to
legal
lawyers. Not my problem.
Well, David Chang is on that. I don't know if you guys have seen it. That new show Loot on Apple TV with Maya Rudolph. He's her personal chef, and she's like, I really just want a grilled cheese sandwich. Like, he'll bring out this elaborate, like, Michelin star meal, and she's like, I really just want a grilled cheese sandwich. Can you just make me a grilled cheese sandwich? He doesn't come out looking great on the show, I will say, but
Is he playing David Chang, or is he
yes,
playing? Okay.
He's playing David Chang.
Okay, because
they probably leaned into his actual reputation. I think he embraces it at this point.
He does. He very much embraces it.
As an actual human being, I've met David Chang. If I see him somewhere, he says, "Hi, Brett." I say, "Hello, Dave." He's, he's fine, and he's many things, but he's certainly not snobby. And if you want a grilled cheese sandwich, he'll make you a grilled cheese sandwich. And he'll probably
That's right. He was the one. I forget when it was. Many years ago, he was advocating for, I think, was it Bud Light, Miller Lite? There was this whole crusade. He was like anti craft brewery because he thought maybe it was even PBR. Because you're right, I don't think he is that much of a snob, and I do believe that he's probably a decent human being. I think some people just recognize that. Gordon Ramsay is a great example. I think a lot of people who meet Gordon Ramsay find that he's actually a pretty nice guy, but when you build your reputation on being a crank, kind of have to lean into it.
It's an image. It's a whole image thing that they, and they're not like that in real life, but they gotta, and it's probably fun. It's probably really fun to be a crank on social media and on TV. It's probably really fun.
It's certainly more satisfying to play a mean character than a nice one.
Always.
And most chefs are not snobs, and they drink beer. I don't remember what David Chang was advocating for, but a lot of them really love Coors Banquet.
Interesting. I wonder why.
Because it's delicious with like country ham and stuff. Have I never told you my Coors Banquet story?
No.
Brief. I was at the Food and Wine Magazine Classic in Aspen, which is just a thing I like to drop periodically. That I go to that sometimes, and I was in a house that was being rented by the pork board. And so all these chefs who love pork were there, and they brought their own country ham, or eating country ham. And they say, "Would you like a beer?" And, I'm not a chef, so I'm allowed to be a beer snob if I want. And, they handed me a Coors Banquet, and I was like, yeah, but I'm not a jerk. So if somebody hands me a beer, I say, yes, I'll have the beer. Not, do you have anything that I want? And I drank it, and it was delicious. It was so good at high altitude in the summer, eating salty country ham. And I was really proud that my snob brain didn't get in the way of my mouth that was saying, no, this is delicious. Shut up, brain. This is an experience you're having. Go with it. And so that allowed me to move back toward drinking more straightforward lagers, because you don't always want to have a conversation with your beer. Like, oh, what does this taste like? I mean, it can be so much. Sometimes
All
just
right. We've kind of gotten off topic, so I'm just going to link the episodes of First Bite in our show notes for you guys to listen to. Bret is great. I got some great feedback from the team that they're excellent episodes, so check those out. I'm going to put them in the show notes. So let's talk about marketing. We have seen an uptick in celebrity marketing, kind of stopped during the pandemic. We've seen it really ramp up. But we're also now seeing the influence of the influencer economy on marketing. It's made smaller chains have more power in the market because they now have access to people with a reach. But there's also marketing from celebrities that is working. I mean, like, think of Post Malone and Raising Cane's. Like, they're both thriving on it. So what do you guys think about this influencer marketing economy? It's kind of complicated, but it's kind of great because it opens up 1,000 doors.
Yeah, I started cynically about looking at this because that's, kind of who I am. And, a lot of these influencers are easy to be cynical toward because, as a older man now, I look at these young whippersnappers doing their goofy dances and think to myself, dear God, what are we coming to? But thankfully, we've kind of evolved past the dear God, what are we coming to phases. I think there's still a lot of dancing on TikTok, but I think influencers have graduated into more thoughtful content. And I mean, certainly they've figured out how to monetize it. And when you monetize something, you've got to be much more strategic than I'm going to shut down traffic and dance in this street and then, try to cause a trend or something. So I do think influencer marketing, I mean, look, you're all about to find out. We are getting ready to roll out our power list at nrn.com. If you're listening to this before April 23rd, that's when you can get access to it. If you're listening to this after April 23rd, go to nrn.com right now and you'll get all of that. We focused on marketing and with an emphasis on influencers because we've been hearing so much about the success that restaurant brands have had with influencers. And all of the marketers that we talked to swore by influencers, and there's good reason. And I wrote about this in that issue, but how I see it is, marketing, traditional marketing, if you look at, television marketing, radio, billboard, print, all of that is a little bit more of what I call like the bazooka approach, right? You just like send something out into the world and hope that people see it. You can be a little targeted on it, but it's just like, going with the big platforms and seeing what happens. But influencers allow brands to be much more of what I call the sniper approach, right? You could be a lot more targeted. Maybe this isn't sensitive because I'm not a big gun guy, but anyway, if you pick some influencers whose demographics, there is a lot of information available about the demographics that follow these people, and certainly there's a lot of influencers who are very focused on specific regions. I think that was a big lesson for me to learn, is that we think influencers, we think Keith Lee, but the fact of the matter is he's a celebrity influencer, and you have these macro influencers who are like over 100,000 followers, and then you have these micro influencers who have much smaller audiences. But those small audiences, if you have 50,000 followers, but you're only focused on Columbus, Ohio, well, you've got a very good focus on that city, right? So, so this is where I think it allows brands to be very targeted in their demographic approach and their regional approach. And at the end of the day, look cool, right? These influencers, a lot of them are fun, fresh, funny, cool. By and large, there's a lot of young folks doing it. And so I do think there's a ton of potential here. And it's not saying anything about all the celebrity partnerships, which we can, of course, get into. And we've talked a lot about on this show before. But it creates buzz without having to be to you don't have to do a lot of the creative. And that's the final thing I'll say, and we'll get into it more when we do the power list next week. But another big lesson for me is that a lot of the folks we interviewed for this package told us, don't tell the influencer what to create. Don't try to dictate it too much. Don't write a script. Let them be their authentic selves and just let them go with it, because again, authenticity is really what's big here. And that way, there's a relatively less lift for you. You don't have to write the script and come up with this whatever. There's some risk, of course, involved, but these influencers will have a way to create something that's cool, fresh, authentic, that benefits your brand. So all around, I think it makes a ton of sense. Where it goes in the future, it's hard to say, because I still think it's pretty tied into trends. But I think it's safe to say that social media creators are not going away.
Well, and they're considerably less expensive than a big marketing campaign, I think, almost all the time. It's funny, Sam, you have joked now about, in this podcast, about being short and old, and I've got you beat in both of those. I'm a lot older than you and a solid 4 inches shorter than you. So I was, and possibly more cynical than you. I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
Boy, the trifecta right there.
So Bret wins it all. He wins the prize.
Bret wins. That's
I don't
right.
know if any of those are necessarily winning things, although I'm happy. I'm content in my skin.
That's all that matters.
Looking at, we didn't just interview a bunch of CMOs for our power list. We also looked at a lot of these influencers and just wrote up little quick pocket little descriptions of who they were. But obviously, to do that, I had to look at what they were doing, and they're doing a lot of really fun stuff. I mean, they're dynamic, engaging, cool people, and so I'm a supporter of that. I go to a lot of networking food related events in New York City, and some of the influencers there just are insufferable, or don't know anything about food or beverage. They just don't know how to make it look good. But a lot of the influencers that we showcased, they're very cool and doing a lot of dynamic things, and I support that.
Well, and I think it's interesting, with this influencer economy, how brands are hiring influencers and having them paid content. They're also sending them food that's free. But there's also this whole environment where people are just creating their own content completely separate from any brand or they're just doing it on their own. And it could be positive or negative. And I think that that's something that's interesting about this new world, is that, we used to have Twitter where someone would post like something snarky and you'd see it and it would trend. But this is a whole different thing. Like, you could have a negative video about a piece of food from a restaurant and it could get 10 million hits, and that restaurant's going to take a hit. And so there's a fine line, I think, between hiring influencers and worrying about what's happening in these apps, in the Instagram app, in the TikTok app. And you have to be, I think it makes your CMO more important, because they need to be tracking all these things and seeing what's happening and making sure that, if something's negative, reaching out and saying what's wrong and fixing things and being proactive. And I think that that's, where the corporate side comes in.
I've probably told this story on this podcast before, but I had an opportunity to see the Chipotle social media war room at one point. And, it was a bunch of young adults with screens all over the room, including one like movie theater sized one. And it's all of their social feeds, right? And so they are very closely monitoring what's happening, and then they're responding, right? Because, to your point, Holly, yes, there's that risk that somebody's going to say something bad about your brand. And the bigger your brand is, the more likely it's going to happen. This stuff happens. And you might be, even Chick-fil-A, who everybody glows about, people will say something negative about an employee or a menu or whatever. So what matters is your response to it. And so, and it's interesting because, folks talk about the Keith Lee effect. Now, that's a little bit more geared toward independents, because Keith Lee does go and visits a lot of independents. But the Keith Lee effect is that if he gives a rave review to some hole in the wall, the next day it's going to have a line around the block many times over. And you've got to be prepared for that. And if you run out of food, well, you're in trouble, because then people might go say something bad about your brand. Conversely, if he says something bad about your brand off the bat, then you just are immediately having that problem. And some of the experts we spoke to for Powerless were just emphasizing that you have to have a plan. You have to know if you know an influencer is coming into your restaurant, have a plan for what happens if they say something good and what happens if they say something bad. And regardless, it will require a response. You can't just ignore it and hope that it goes well. You have to be prepared for either a lot of business that's coming your way or some negativity that you have to address, and be honest and say, we're going to do better. So I do think, like, if no matter how big your restaurant is, you just have to be closely monitoring what's being said about your brand. You have to be prepared to have a response for better or worse. And ultimately, you just have to let go of some of the control. Social media is all about letting go of the control, giving the conversation over to the consumer. And that's scary, but if you navigate that properly, it ultimately has a very big reward.
It also is a reminder to pay attention to your regulars all the time and treat them like the VIPs that they are. Because no matter what kind of negative activity comes your way, unless it's really awful, your regulars are going to be your regulars and you have to look out for them. And we've seen over the years that large chains that do well are embedded in their communities, and they sponsor charities and they support little league teams and all that sort of stuff. And that makes a huge difference in consumer perception.
Well, and this story came up because Keith Lee has a new pizza at Pizza Hut. And so I think that this is the largest collaboration between an influencer and a big chain that we've seen so far, like in terms of a menu item, because we've seen, like, on social media a lot of these collaborations, sending food, giving reviews, but I think this pulls it out of the social media context and now puts it into the real world for a real ad campaign. And I'm curious to see how this impacts Pizza Hut's traffic. I mean, they just released it, so we won't know for a while, but we can analyze the results after and see exactly how this worked for Pizza Hut or didn't work.
I'm kind of interested to see what happens with Keith Lee, because some might say, oh, you've jumped the shark. Now you're working with a major brand. Because again, I do think, going back to that idea that you have celebrity influencers, macro influencers, and micro influencers. And, there was a comment made. Lena Katz was one of the experts we spoke with, and she had this great line, which is, you could have 100,000 followers, but if you only have 3,000 views per video, you might as well only have 3,000 followers. And you can have some influencers who do only have 3,000 followers and get 3,000 views, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily matter the size of your audience. What matters is the engagement that you're getting per video, per post.
And sorry, go ahead.
Well, just to make the point that, like, you don't have to go for these celebrity influencers. And some might argue a celebrity influencer like Keith Lee, and there's no disrespect to him, but he's not even an influencer anymore, right? He's kind of just like a figurehead. He's a celebrity. And so if you're saying to yourself, I want to get into influencer marketing, don't say to yourself, let's start with Keith Lee. Look for somebody who maybe only has 10,000 followers, but a ton of engagement, and they're in your community or have your demographics.
Yeah, it's in your community that I think is key, especially if you're a smaller chain. You don't want 1 million views if none of them are in your market. If you get 5,000 views in your market, that's phenomenal. Do that.
It's a good note to end on, Bret. But we do have to talk a little bit about Red Lobster, because they are an interesting brand right now. We can call it interesting. We can also say our views in a little bit. But they created a new playlist for their cheddar biscuits, which, I've never been to Red Lobster. Surprise, surprise. But I assumed these were like their most popular menu items. So little surprised why they're creating a playlist for it. But I mean, I'm just a little confused by this move. It feels like a dud. I mean, what do you guys think?
I mean, I don't understand why Red Lobster is sort of tweaking around the edges while they also hired the Grim Reaper as their CEO, Jonathan Tybus, who's known as a restructuring expert. Like that, and there are reports, Bloomberg reported with unnamed sources, that Red Lobster is considering bankruptcy, which, given the fact that its large shareholder Thai Union has been like, nope, we're done. We don't want to deal with this anymore. We're not giving them any more money. Like, why are they playing around with like AI for their Cheddar Bay biscuits to create a mix? Like, what are they doing?
Well, it isn't like, I feel like a lot of AI is free at this point. Like, it's not something that you have to necessarily pay for. So it's such a weird move, because it's also like, who's going to listen to this playlist?
So I was just trying to find out. I was just trying to find it on Spotify. Maybe I didn't get the memo on where that was, but I wanted to know what was on this playlist. Look, as a big music guy, I'm okay with this move. This is, file this under the sort of Wendy's irreverent marketing playbook, right? This is the Wendy's social media persona not matching anything about the brand, and yet it works because people like the snarkiness, right? Like, sometimes with these big brands, they can just do these quirky, weird things, and it's like, oh, okay, well, sure, why not? It's Red Lobster. And music is obviously such a big part of consumers' lives that it's a great opportunity to connect with folks. And a playlist is free. I mean, you can make a free playlist. That's easy peasy. I can make a playlist. I do have many playlists. None for anybody here to follow, though. So I don't know. I guess I don't find it that weird. However, to both of your points, I mean, when you contrast it to everything else that's going on, there's a little bit of a, I don't know, sleight of hand. There's a little bit of like, oh, what's going on over here? No bankruptcy going on over there. So, you see this from a lot of companies when things are going bad. They try to distract from the problem, but there's no distracting from that. I mean, Red Lobster is such an interesting, thing, because Red Lobster is an iconic brand. I mean, they're the largest seafood brand,
Oh, for sure.
full service.
Yeah.
Not bigger than Long John Silver's, maybe. I'd have to go back to the data. But, there's a place for it. I just don't think things have been going well for it ever since it left Darden, right? And there's a reason Darden probably offloaded it. So anyway, I can't speak with much more authority than that, other than to say there's an opportunity in full service seafood that Red Lobster is a great opportunity to fulfill. And perhaps that's why the Grim Reaper has joined as CEO to get it there. But it's going to go through some ugly days before it gets back to its happy days.
When Red Lobster has messed up when it comes to music before, you might recall, God, 8 years ago or so, when Beyonce came out with a song expressing that, if her date treated her properly, she'd take him to Red Lobster. That is the best product placement. I can't think of a better product placement. And Red Lobster took a couple of days, and they were like, "Oh, thanks," was their social media response, which was
I didn't know that. And contrast that to the Applebee's Fancy Like. I mean, that's amazing, because Applebee's won marketing awards for its response to the Walker Hayes hit. So that, and I mean, good grief, Beyonce, like, you missed the biggest softball. You whiffed on a big softball like that one. That's really too bad. And yeah, I mean, those kind of things do not come around every so often. So may that be a lesson to every brand to pay attention to. If they end up in the zeitgeist, take advantage of it and don't let go.
Yes.
Yeah. So this playlist I found it, is on YouTube only.
Oh, okay.
So weird move. And this description, no songs in it yet, but the video title is Cheddar Bay Bouncing. And it says, vibe out to this 90s hip hop beat. It'll have you yapping about your biscuit love to all the bays. So they're really trying hard there.
This is the official one, you're sure?
Yep.
How is there no music there? They've announced the playlist and they didn't put any music on it yet?
No, they're dropping one song like every few days. It's a slow building playlist.
Interesting. Okay.
It's a real interesting thing that's happening here. And I think people should learn from it and learn what not to do.
I'll judge them later once this has played itself out.
Maybe the playlist will turn the chain around. I was going to say stranger things have happened, but I'm not sure about that. But certainly good luck, Red Lobster.
Yes, good luck, Red Lobster. We wish you all the best. We kind of want to watch your downfall, but if you do great, we'll watch that too.
Yeah.
I don't
So,
want to
Brett,
see anybody fail. What are you
Of
talking
course not. No,
about?
no, no.
I have been to Red Lobster. I enjoy it. Come on. We were cheering for everybody. They can do it. Let's go, Red Lobster.
I used to love Red Lobster as a kid. I'd get those crab legs and spend the whole evening cracking them open. Love
And
that.
those biscuits are great.
They're
They
delicious.
are very
how is the
delicious.
seafood there? What's the quality like?
I mean, I have a fairly low bar for seafood, and I don't eat it a lot at restaurants. So I'm not the right one to ask. Brett, would you care to weigh in on that?
It's an inexpensive casual dining chain.
There you go.
All right, so that's a no from me. Thank you. Uh, so, Brett, I'm going to turn it over to your interview with Chris Eckfeld, the Director of Supply Chain for District Taco. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that before we throw people over to it?
We recorded it a while ago, but he's an interesting man working for a relatively small chain, and they've done some very creative things, and I don't want to spoil it. I want you guys to enjoy the interview.
Do you remember it?
I'm not going to say anything about that.
All right, well, thank you guys for joining me today.
Very
Good. Thank you guys for joining me today, and we'll see you next week.
alrighty.
Thanks, Holly.
Bel Joso Cheese is a family-owned and operated company specializing in artisan Italian cheesemaking. Using only natural ingredients and fresh, local Wisconsin milk, master cheesemakers handcraft a full line of exceptional cheeses, guided by a commitment to quality and a respect for tradition. Ask your distributor about Bel Joso's award-winning fresh mozzarella, burrata, ricotta, mascarpone, American grana, and Parmesan. At Bel Joso, every cheese is a specialty.
And District Taco, based just outside the district, right?
Correct.
And
Yep.
how many locations are you up to now?
Currently, we have 16 locations open. We've got 2 additional locations that will open within the next, 3 weeks. Then we've got 2 additional that are just beginning construction, and we're hoping to get another 2 by the end of this year. But we are full steam ahead on our franchising program.
You're on a roll.
Yes, sir.
So, what markets are you in, and how many are company owned, and how many are franchised?
Currently, 14 are company owned, and everything else moving forward is going to be franchised. So there's 2 currently franchise open, the 2 that will open in 30 days, and then 2 additional after that. So everything from moving forward is going to be a franchise owned operation. Markets, we are primarily in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia.
Mhm.
Our new locations are opening in Norfolk, Virginia, and Wayne, New Jersey. So we've got development agreements signed for that Tidewater, area, northern New Jersey, Brooklyn, Florida. So our goal is by the end of this year we'll have a New York City store, and we'll have a Florida location.
So expanding beyond your home market, which as the director of supply chain will probably pose some different challenges. And
It
also,
does.
and you guys have a unique menu. You have a focus on local seasonal stuff, but also the flavors of the Yucatan. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, our founder of Cyrus Oil is a Mexican immigrant from the Yucatan, and all of the recipes are his mother's. So it's like we are definitely, everything we do is with an eye to that, fresh Mexican heritage that Osiris grew up with. Challenges, yeah, I mean, everything I always tell our leadership is that volume cures all ills. So if we're able to have multiple stores in a market where we're able to, get our products, easily there, then we're doing great. One store, one distribution center is definitely a challenge. So we'll rely heavily on our distribution partner as our vendors to lessen minimums, allow us to get the least amount of cases possible. We lean on our distribution partner to try and see what they have currently stocked that might fit within our specifications. But flexibility is the key. When we're at one store, one distribution center, we need to be as flexible as possible. We also want to make sure that we are properly supporting our stores. These two new stores are in brand new markets for us. So the last thing that we want to do is, prohibit them from being successful. So if we need to UPS product into their stores, we're going to do that. We're going to do everything that we can to make sure that they have the best possible district taco experience.
And are there particular items that are especially challenging for you guys?
Produce is always challenging. There's a ton of weather related issues going on in the West Coast right now. So we need to make sure that the products that we're bringing in meet the quality that we expect. All of our avocados come from Mexico, so we need to make sure that that pipeline stays flowing. But produce for us is always a challenge.
And that's kind of central to your food, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Fresh Mex.
And fresh Yucatan Mex,
Exactly. Absolutely.
which has to be a challenging message because most people don't know that Yucatan food, well, exists, but also it's different from other Mexican food.
Yeah, I mean, most people, I think if you were to ask the general consumer where the Yucatan is, they'd probably be challenged. Now, if you ask them where Cancun is, absolutely, absolutely. So that's kind of how we dovetail into. We say, "Are you familiar with Cancun?" They're like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." That's the Yucatan, right? Our flavors, are all proprietary to what Osiris and has created. So, while people may not know what the Yucatan is, but they're definitely familiar when we say pollo asado, carne asada, carnitas. It's like they are very well familiar with those types of flavors. Currently, so it's not a big challenge, but it definitely gives an opportunity to educate the guests when we start talking about the Yucatan.
That makes, I mean, but I imagine they also have somewhat different flavor profiles than, say, carne asada from northern Mexico or the interior.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, we definitely, are heavy. Like one of the biggest keys is the use of vinegar in our recipes that gets used to help tenderize the meat. Because most of what Osiris grew up with would be considered, tougher cuts of meat, not very much what we would normally see in the grocery store. So we use a lot of collar meat, which is from the pectoral region of the cattle. So it's very misshapen. It's a little bit tougher. So our use of vinegar and spices and chiles to help tenderize that meat is definitely what's going to separate us. But from an overall flavor profile, if someone's familiar with northern Mexico carne asada, they're not going to be disappointed with what they have in a district taco restaurant.
What I would think with that kind of meat, you're having really flavorful meat. It tastes actually like the animals that it comes from, which probably,
Yes.
well,
Yes,
which
it's ranching is a passion of our founder. It's one of Osiris's passions. And so he wants to make sure that the beef tastes like beef. That if you're getting, carne asada taco or burrito or anything from our menu, that beef flavor is definitely genuine and you will enjoy it.
is that a challenge? Or I mean, I guess you've become friends with your suppliers so they know what you're looking
Mhm.
for. But I mean, when you started, were they like, what do you mean you want collar? That's not a thing that people want.
We have a fantastic partner in Wolverine Packing, and they're great. They are an amazing resource. So because their history as a company is in, slaughterhouses, harvest facilities, they're very familiar with all the different primals, all of the different cuts. And you know what? They're great, and we tell them what we want to do, and they do their best. We were looking at one point, because of how how unique the pectoral region is, and it's not something that you're normally going to find. We're like, okay, let's look at other options, whether it's flank or sirloin or skirt, something along those lines. And we just realized that the cost increase wasn't going to offset the benefit for us, and so we just stuck with it. And probably the biggest challenge when it comes to something like that is on the team member side, just making sure that they understand how to properly cook it, because it's going to look, this section is going to be thicker than this section, and we need to make sure that prior to grilling, we're breaking it down into pieces that are going to cook evenly. So, the biggest challenge for us is going to be when you see it in a bowl or see it in a taco, you're just going to see the end result. It's for them is to make sure that they're able to cook it and grill it and grill it properly.
And what is your own background, Chris? How did you get into this supplying collar meat and Mexican avocados to
Yeah,
the
I'm a
area?
food service lifer. I grew up, always wanting to cook. It was one of my passions. I couldn't play sports, but I could cook. So I decided that, from a young age, I wanted to go to cooking school. I went to Johnson and Wales in Providence, Rhode Island, got degrees in culinary arts, hospitality management, food service administration. And at that time, I'm like, yep, I'm gonna go work in restaurants. After spending a few years doing that, realizing Easter's coming up. It's like I'm never going to see a holiday at home. I was able to get into the Aramark side of things, and I got into business dining. So I got into that Monday through Friday. Then I had a gentleman who was a food broker, came by my restaurant one day, and he's like, man, he goes, you should try this. I'm like, I'm not going to do commission sales. He's like, no, 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 it's not. He goes, it gives you an opportunity to still, learn product, and then, talk with restaurants, and so I did that. And then through that, I was able to, work with a number of different local chains. And that's where I met the team from Five Guys. And so, I joined them on the purchasing distribution side, and I spent 9 years with Five Guys. Then, through like, NRA supply chain exchange, and, I got the chance to meet other, industry, like industry people, like people doing supply chain. I met the team from Kava. So I was with them for about 3 years, and then the opportunity with District Taco, came, essentially fell in my lap, and so I took it as an opportunity. I had the opportunity to work with Five Guys, which is a larger chain, Kava, which was an emerging chain, and then District Taco now, which is really an emerging chain, and just saw the opportunity. And I love Osiris's passion. If you ever have a chance to talk with him, you just realize that, what he's seen, what he's done, and just listening to him talk about how much he loves Mexico, he loves the food, he loves what he's doing. You're like, yeah, I want to work for that guy. So,
And he moved here when he was like 18 years old, right?
yes, it's a phenomenal story. It really is. It's truly, truly amazing.
Well, your story is interesting too, Chris, because you started out like, I want to cook,
Hmm.
right? But now probably you do not cook as part of your job. Maybe at home
No,
you cook, but so
absolutely.
is that weird? Do you miss the absurd hubbub of the kitchen, or are you over it?
No, no, no. It's like once you get in there, it's like we'll do some field training days where we'll spend some time in our restaurants, because we want to make sure that the products that are coming in are meeting our specifications. Plus, we want to see what our crew members are going through. We want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to support them. So I'll be able to get on the grill sometimes, and get on the plancha, make some burritos, make some tacos. I'm like, okay, and then after about 4 or 5 hours, I'm like, okay, I've I've had my fill. I'll step back and get back behind the computer. So
Yeah, yeah. At that point, you're like, yeah, my feet are tired and my back hurts, and I don't really want to.
exactly, and that's when I learned I'm not as young as I used to be.
That's okay because
Yeah.
you start with culinary knowledge and you can
Mhm.
expand it to other stuff.
Yeah, I wish I could go back and tell my younger self what an amazing ride this industry was going to be. I didn't know outside of cooking what other opportunities, and when you get into it and you start seeing all the different paths that you can go on and still stay within the food service industry, or utilize a culinary degree, or utilize any type of kitchen experience that you have, it's amazing. And a credit to colleges and universities now recognizing supply chain as, as a career. And so it enables a lot of folks that may not have gotten into this side of the business an opportunity. And so we get a lot more, and we get a lot more college graduates and a lot more, new industry professionals that, are just amazing at what they can do on the supply chain side.
Well, it's supply chain is interesting because it's something that we didn't talk about very much until the pandemic, or really 2021, when, people started to, go out of their homes and go into restaurants again, and everybody ran out of product everywhere all the
Yes.
time. And things that we thought were just normal things that happen in a civilized country weren't happening anymore. And you've been doing supply chain for that whole time. So are you traumatized? Are you starting to feel better? What's it like now?
I think this is the first year that I didn't say next year's got to be better, right? It's like when we were in 2020, we're like 2021's got to be better. Then 2021 got here. We're like, oh my God, 2022's got to be better. I think it's the first year where we might be finally getting back to a level of normalcy, but I think we had a lot of great learning lessons during COVID, about being flexible, about knowing that you need to cultivate multiple supplier relationships. You need to be more flexible in what your specification is. Creativity from this side of things definitely, got, stronger, learning who all is out there. And I think it's a credit to the industry as a whole, just, being flexible, and whether at one point you thought, oh, I don't have enough volume for that manufacturer, but then you start talking with them, and you realize that there's other things that they can do for you, maybe package a couple different items together. And but I think, the days of this is my spec and this is all that I'm going to use, are essentially, I wouldn't say done, because we definitely have to have roots in what the specification is. But we just have to understand that, you know, it's completely possible that, that something else could happen, that we need to make sure that we have enough resources and enough relationships built. So
Yeah, and for a while it was just nuts. Like, it was even hard to report on because you couldn't say, oh, there's a shortage in paper goods now, but then there's a shortage in oranges. Like, every day there was something else that everybody was out of, or that somebody else, had to substitute with. So it's nice that things have kind of calmed down a little.
a lot of our current menu was was driven by the pandemic, whether it was simplifying things for at the restaurant level, or realizing that this item or this ingredient is going to be a challenge to source. So maybe we need to look at removing it from the menu, or pivoting to something else. Yeah, I think you hit it on the head though. It's like every day it was something new. It sounds exciting now. It sounds exciting now to talk about. It definitely wasn't exciting then. Um, but you still hear stories about vendors that, didn't survive the pandemic, and, and the challenges that it caused. And so you realize now that, the partners that you have, it's a partnership. It truly is, whether it's at the store level, at the vendor level, at the distribution level. It's a partnership, and just, cherish what we have, and, and be a little more forgiving, understanding, realizing that they're doing their best job to get us what we need. And so, I think we all learn to be a little more tolerant, or in some people's case, maybe a lot more tolerant.
So how is the district taco menu of 2024 different from the district taco of the before times?
It's a lot less complex. We definitely removed, two or three proteins. We get a lot of requests to bring back barbacoa, which was another beef menu item. But just from a cost and complexity standpoint, we're not people, we used to run al pastor, which it's a very traditional, Mexican pork, but again, we had carnitas. So we wanted to, it's a lot less complex for our restaurants to do carnitas than it is to do al pastor. So we also looked at, a lot of scratch made ingredients, like scratch made recipes. We also looked at ingredients. We were trying to figure out the best way to, multi utilize things in our restaurants. When we do menu, innovation ideation now, the first thing we do when we get our core group of GMs together that help us do, menuing, we're like, okay, the one restriction is it can't be a new item. We have to look at what we're doing with items that we already have in house. So, I mean, I'd say the difference between District Taco menu pre-COVID versus post-COVID is just the level of complexity and then simplification.
And I would guess that that actually improves operations because you can do things like more efficiently.
Exactly. Absolutely, yes.
Uh, how about in terms of quality? Is that something that, you had to make sacrifices on for the sake of simplicity?
No, I would tell you the one thing that probably the first day I met with Osiris in this role is he said the one thing we're not going to sacrifice is quality. Every decision we make, if we're looking to cut cost or, I hate cut costs, drive savings, improve, efficiency in the restaurant. The one thing that can't be sacrificed is the quality of the item. We're not going to use a lesser quality cheese, or we're not going to, go and find a different type of produce item if the quality of what we're trying to produce is going to be impacted. So yeah, I would say the one thing that has not been sacrificed at District Taco is quality.
Great. When I heard stories of chefs who wanted to do like really complex, fancy things, and they were.
Mhm.
And then they, in 2020, 2021, they stepped back and said, do I really need these 4 steps? Or can we do it in 1 step? And often that 1 step, like just a straightforward grilling, can work better than a really involved thing. Is that something that you guys also came across?
Yeah, so we've realized that, like, when we started, tweaking recipes and tweaking menu items, whether it's during COVID or post COVID, we were running into challenges at the restaurant level. Maybe we made things too complex. We would hear stories from our team, and they weren't following the recipes like they should have, and which would lead to, issues with the final finished product. That's where we went back and we started engaging our teams more. Like, we went to our GMs, and what we realized, Brett, is that we have a lot of long-term District Taco employees that have been here through, when we opened in 2012 versus 2024, right? And so they've seen a bunch of different things and been with us long enough to see the highs and to see how things change. And we said, okay, myself and our director of training can work on a recipe change. But if we're not leaning on them to say, okay, operationally, does this work? Right. And then we realize, okay, we need to make sure that we're doing things that our crew can easily replicate. So yeah, it may involve removing a step, or it may involve, tweaking the steps. Instead of going A, B, C, D, maybe it's better to go A, C, D, E. Right. And that's kind of things that we've learned, is that we need to make sure that we're utilizing our talent base and our knowledge resources already in our stores.
So that talent base can include hourly employees who have been there a long time and know how to make it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they're the ones that we also realize that as we grow and as we expand are going to be fantastic trainers. We're going to need these folks that have been here and have been at District Taco, to help us, in these new markets, help us open these new stores and utilize them as more and it gives them another sense of opportunity. So
And that could also probably help with retention because like they feel more invested in the company and that the company respects them and is giving them a path to grow.
absolutely. When we opened our first two franchise locations, they were our first two new stores since before COVID. And going into those stores and seeing these folks that we plucked out of our current restaurants as trainers, and just the smiles on their face and watching them interact with our new franchisees and their teams was really cool. It was a great thing to see.
So I'm glad you brought up franchising because I was about to, because going from all company owned to
Mhm.
franchising is a whole different thing. And from a supply chain perspective, are there unique challenges to that?
Not really, because we've set the products that they're going to use. There's no opportunity for them to go outside of our sourcing. We'll lean on them if they think that there might be something, but ideally, if I've done my job, they're not going to worry about cost. Right. So we don't have two different sets of, cost structures, one for corporate, one for franchise. So everyone pays the same price. Everyone, gets the same ingredients. So while I'm trying to drive, cost of goods savings in our corporate restaurants, it's going to be reflective on theirs as well. And then plus we need them to trust us, that the items that we're sourcing for them, the things that we're specifying for them is what's going to be what's best for their restaurant. And so, just it helps them worry more about their operations and focus more on running their restaurants versus the whole, multi-bid system or RFP process, or even the overall sourcing. Let us worry about that.
That's why they're paying their royalties to you because you're
Exactly.
providing a service to them.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, Chris, what can we expect from District Taco in the coming whatever year, apart from new locations, which is certainly
We are constantly looking at our menu to make sure that the items that we're offering appeal to our guests. What's going to keep them coming back? So we're kind of, doing the SWOT analysis and looking at what we're currently offering, whether it's from a topping standpoint. That's our biggest opportunity, is in what we call our toppings. Those are the pico de gallos, the corn, the cabbages, the cheeses, those different things you could add to any of our key menu items: burritos, tacos, nachos, bowls, salads. And how do we make them more appealing to guests? Like, if we can, so we had a plain corn. It was just a nice, corn that we added some salt and lime juice to, and it was fine. Then we're like, okay, what can we do differently? Well, we can throw it on the plancha. We can get some nice color on it. Then we can add some cilantro to it. Then we can, then toss it with some lime juice at the end. Now we've taken a very basic corn topping, and now we've made it almost like an upscale corn topping that we can promote, through our POS or promote through our social channels. And we're looking at all of our tops and seeing what can we do similarly, whether it's cabbage, instead of just a plain shredded cabbage, which is great on fish tacos. Right now, we just had that same group of GMs are like, okay, what else can we do differently? We came up with five different ideas, presented to senior leadership. We came up with one that allowed us to do a more flavorful, almost like a cabbage slaw with one additional ingredient, and then gave us, a better way to offer cabbage, and then, drive, purchases on some slower moving items. We're also looking at, we do breakfast all day, and we're really happy about it. We think it's one of the things that differentiates us from some of our competitors. So we're always playing around with the breakfast menu. Currently, we offer tacos and burritos, and we've been playing with a quesadilla. Like, how do we do a breakfast quesadilla? It's one that probably we'll look to further dive into in probably later on in this year or beginning of next year. But ideally, it's always going to be us focusing on the quality first, focusing on the guest experience, and figuring out the best ways to get folks to continue to come into a Dish or Taco.
Sounds great. And we are about out of time, so I want to thank you for taking the
Brett.
time to hang out. Chris Eichfeld, it's pronounced Eichfeld, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, I got it right.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, and I'll look you up next time I'm in the DC area.
I appreciate it, Brett. Tacos on me.
Fantastic.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Bel Joso Cheese is a family-owned and operated company specializing in artisan Italian cheese making. Using only natural ingredients and fresh, local Wisconsin milk, master cheesemakers handcraft a full line of exceptional cheeses, guided by a commitment to quality and a respect for tradition. Ask your distributor about Bel Joso's award-winning fresh mozzarella, burrata, ricotta, mascarpone, American Grana, and Parmesan. At Bel Joso, every cheese is a specialty.